Okay. Hey guys. All right. So today we're moving on to difference of squares with factoring out a GCF if you need to. Okay. So we're starting to combine more than one factoring technique, and then tomorrow we will combine several factoring techniques. Okay. So if you recall, finding the difference of squares is you're using a binomial, and both terms have to be perfect squares. Okay, these are 144 is a perfect square, a squared is a perfect square. Then you have 49 is a perfect square, and b is a perfect square. So if you recall, the way I write this is I take the square root, and I have 12a and then 7b. Okay, then I write it like this. It will be 12a minus 7b times 12a plus 7b. Okay, that's the form that you write it in. Okay, all right. So now you can still do difference of squares. What you want to look at is you want to look and see if you can modify this in a way that will allow you to do difference of squares. And modify means I'm going to try to factor something out. Okay, so our steps are: if each term in the binomial is not a perfect square, factor out a common factor that will make it a perfect square out of each one. Then use the difference of squares rule and rewrite. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, you kind of need to play around with it. I need to take something out of each one, the same thing out of each one that will make it both perfect squares. Okay, well, I know that there's one a here and three a's here. I can factor out an a, so I'm going to. That will leave me with a squared and just a number here. All right, and then I know that they're both divisible by 12. If I divide 12 by 12, that leaves me with 1. That is a perfect square. And then 12 goes into 48 4 times. That's also a perfect square, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to factor out a 12a. Okay? Which also happens to be the greatest common factor in this case. So 12 goes into 48 4 times. I'm left with a squared, because a goes into a cubed. I'm left with 2. And then minus 1. All right, now I have my 12a here that I factor out, and then the second part is a perfect difference of squares. Both of these things are perfect squares. Okay, so the square root of 4a squared is 2a. The square root of 1 is 1. And now I'm going to rewrite it. This that we factored out just drops down to our final answer. Okay, it's going to be here. Use different color again. So on the outside I'll have 12a, and then I'll have 2a minus 1 and 2a plus 1, or 2a plus 1, 2a minus 1. It doesn't particularly matter. You just rewrite it in a different order. Okay? Now, let's look at this one right here. All right, I've got 2x to the 4th power minus 162. Okay? I want to look at this and see if I can make both of these numbers into perfect squares by factoring something out of them. Okay, I'm going to try factoring out a 2. If I divide 162 by 2, it's 81. 81 is 9 squared. That's a perfect square. So I'm going to take out a 2. And then I end up with 2 goes into 2 one time, x to the 4th minus 81. I know you've not seen x to the 4th, it's usually x squared here, but that doesn't matter. It's still a perfect square. Okay? Now, I have difference of the squares. These are both perfect squares. I can factor it again. All right? So, the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. The square root of 81 is 9. Okay? So, I will have then 2 times x squared minus 9 x squared plus 9. Okay. There's one thing I'm wanting you to notice, and I can simplify a little bit more. And the reason is that this term right here is again a perfect difference of squares. This is not, because it's a sum of squares. Difference, subtract, sum, add. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this one. Okay. So I've got x and then 3. So my final answer, this drops down, okay? So I have 2 times x minus 3, x plus 3. This drops down to times x squared plus 9. And that is the final answer. Okay. Again, guys, especially this problem, this last problem, I would rewatch it again, just because it requires more than one step, and actually more than 2 steps. And remember to take your notes, and then go ahead and do your assignment.